We begin with the fallout over the new Michael Jackson documentary. His level of stardom, the most rarefied of air. He was entertainment royalty. But allegations of sexual abuse dogged him in life and now in death. Those allegations have reemerged in a depth and detail that in the Me Too era may get a more sympathetic ear.
For me, this moment transcends Michael Jackson. It is much bigger than any one person. It's like a scourge on humanity.
The significance was lost on no one. The once queen of daytime, like the world, taking a harsh look at the late king of pop. In this highly anticipated sit-down with two of Michael Jackson's alleged sex abuse victims.
Every night that I was with him, there was abuse. While my mother was, next door. He started talking about how much he loves me.
The explosive HBO documentary, Leaving Neverland, painting a stunning, explicitly graphic account of alleged abuse by Michael Jackson that targeted the most vulnerable victims, children. Airing nearly 10 years after his death, and in its wake, fallout and shocking detail.
I think his legacy is in pretty serious jeopardy. A lot of us are having to grapple with is, can you still love the music if it was made by someone who seems to have been quite a horrible person?
The film chronicles the lives of James Safechuck, now 41, and Wade Robson, now 36.
Michael chose me. Yeah, there's no question I was like head over heels in love with Michael. And he said he loved me.
Robson says he first met Jackson in his native Australia.
I was 7 years old. Michael asked, do you and the family want to come to Neverland?
But Robson says that relationship soon turned sexual.
For some reason, it didn't feel strange to let, me, a 7-year-old, sleep in this man's bedroom.
Robson, Safechuck, and director Dan Reed discussed the film with Oprah.
The grooming had started long before we ever met him. Because he was who he was. He was such a massive figure and represented himself as such an angel.
Robson says he was abused for 7 years by Jackson.
Hello, Wade. Today is your birthday, so congratulations. I love you. Goodbye.
He would go on to become a world-class choreographer, but says the warnings Jackson gave him always remain.
If they ever found out what we were doing about this sexual stuff, that he and I'd be pulled apart, and that we'd never be able to see each other again, and that he and I would go to jail for the rest of our lives.
James Safechuck says he first met Jackson while shooting this commercial at age 10. Safechuck says after developing a friendship with the pop star, Jackson abused him again and again in secret hideaways located throughout Jackson's Neverland Ranch and in hotel rooms on tour.
At the same time, the sexual relationship is growing. He's working on pushing you away from your parents, pushing you away from everybody else.
Both men idolized Jackson and claimed that Jackson befriended their unsuspecting mothers and families.
Michael wanted to be with our family. This was all so overwhelming and like a fairy tale, and I got lost in it.
He would reward me with jewelry for doing sexual acts for him.
Safechuck says Jackson even put on a mock wedding in private and gave him this ring.
It has a row of diamonds with a gold band. It's hard to go back to that moment. He would run drills with me where you'd be in the hotel room and he would pretend like somebody was coming in and you had to get dressed as fast as possible. He would tell me that if anybody found out, his life would be over and my life would be over.
But when child molestation allegations involving another boy surfaced against Jackson in 1993, Robson and Safechuck vigorously defended Jackson and even testified on his behalf, saying he never molested or touched them inappropriately. Robson doing so again in 2005, prior to Jackson's acquittal on charges of abusing another boy.
I did not testify out of thinking I was doing something good or knowing that what he did was bad. I was afraid of being caught.
Adult victims of sexual abuse may lie to protect the person they love, and that is not uncommon at all.
They both now say they were not being truthful then, And it wasn't until years later, after they married and became fathers themselves, that they decided to confront their truth and share their stories with loved ones and the world.
I want to be able to speak the truth as loud as I had to speak the lie.
Once Michael died and once Wade had his own son, he looks at this fragile, vulnerable little child and imagines the things that Michael was doing to him, to little Wade, being done to his own child, and that freaks him out completely. And he realizes that his relationship with Michael wasn't love, it was something much more unhealthy.
Very often these children don't call it abuse because they feel that they wanted it, they went along with it, they love this person who's giving them attention, they want to protect them. So it's very psychically confusing, which is why it takes many of these victims of abuse so long to come out.
Both Robson and Safechuck sued the Jackson estate 4 years after Jackson's death. The lawsuit's dismissed as being brought too late. They're appealing.
One of the problems that happens in these cases is that there is a statute of limitations on child sexual abuse. It is something that I have never understood because there is no statute of limitations on murder. And when you are sexually abusing a child, you have killed their childhood.
Jackson's family is pushing back, defending the king of pop in an interview with CBS.
I know my brother. I know what he stood for, what he was all about, bringing the world together, making kids happy.
And he was never, in your opinion, abusive to children?
No, never.
Never inappropriate with children?
Never
in a sexual way?
Not in a sexual way.
And on the same night as the documentary debuted, the estate released one of the entertainer's concerts on YouTube. The Michael Jackson estate is now suing HBO for $100 million. The lawsuit calls the documentary a one-sided marathon of unvetted propaganda to shamelessly exploit an innocent man. And the Jackson family has released a statement saying, in part, the facts don't lie. People do. Michael Jackson was and always will be 100% innocent of these false allegations.
These statements about me are totally false.
The documentary is balanced because you have Michael Jackson saying his side of the story, giving his denials.
The fallout continues. 3 radio stations in Montreal have pulled the entertainer's songs. But in this era of Me Too, even if allegations now are seen in a new light, Jackson's iconic legacy is not one easily torn down.
What happens a lot when you have a controversial figure like this is the real faithful fans double down. It just goes to show how much an entertainer and how much music can mean to people.
What Reed hopes is that it isn't so much about tearing down an icon. It's about vital information and lifting all survivors.
I would hope that what people take away from the film is a more complex and balanced understanding of how child sexual abuse takes place.
You have forgiven yourself.
I have forgiven myself.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lifelong journey for me, and I'm helping myself so that I can be better for my kids and my family, and that's the goal.
The 2-part HBO documentary film Leaving Neverland is currently airing on HBO Now and HBO Go.